Hello, I hope you're all doing fine. And in today's episode, we want to look at another way of building up an Aikido class, and specifically where we want to do explorations of some principles, of some ways of practicing that are not specifically techniques. Okay, so stay with us for a few minutes and we'll share with you how we do it in our dojo.
So there's a couple of different ways that we could approach going into a class and just a class of explorations. Even from the beginning, if we're doing some basic warm-ups, we might work a little bit on something that could correspond to a certain principle. If you can fit that into a basic warm-up. Let's say, for example, we're looking at maybe what we might call center line. And we might do a warm-up where we just kind of, really kind of focus on whatever center line we have, maybe even doing some balancing type exercises just to get a feel for what the center line is. And then we could approach the class in a couple of different ways to look at exploring principles. A couple of different ways that we could do that would be, first of all, by starting with some easy steps and getting into more advanced practice. Okay, what I mean by that is we might start with a general kind of exercise with the principle, say center line. Another way to do it would be starting with the technique. Okay, maybe a specific technique that you want to work on, and then you find a principle that is within the technique, and then you look more in depth at the principle. Okay, so you start with the technique and then look at the principle. Another way to do it is, if you're not going to look at any techniques, then you just want to build up sort of slowly, step by step, kind of adding degrees into a practice so that it makes every step along the way digestible. So in that sense, you would just be looking at some sort of principle exploration without technique, and you build in steps so that people could digest things one at a time and sort of build up a process to it. So let's take a look at these examples. So let's take a look at the first example that I was just offering. And so with my partner, if I begin just sort of working on simple exercises for a principle that would lead into a technique, I might do something like this. So I'm going to work on center line. Okay, so I've been talking about center line, and I want to work on center line with students in the class. And so just kind of explaining, okay, the body has a line sort of through the center, and there's sort of a balance from there. Now, in this, what we might do is take a look at how do I get in touch with the center. Okay, so one simple exercise, for example, would be moving around, connecting through the body, and trying to kind of move into the center line down into the feet. Okay, and without necessarily pushing my partner over or pulling my partner, we could even go as far as going into the arm. We've covered some of these types of exercises in our other videos, but this is one way to do it. So as I do this, then I want to get in touch with that center line and just get a feel for it. I could start with the body very close, move out to the arm, and then start to look at the center line and how can I touch and affect the center line without pushing or pulling my partner too much. Okay? By the end of that, then I could actually use the example of a technique so that we could actually practice this in a technique. And in this case, I would take katate dori and do a technique where we might do kokyunage. Okay, so I would step out, and as I step in to do a kokyunage, then we would look at this principle of connecting to the center line, connecting right into the center line, and finishing with the technique. Okay, so another way that we can move into an explorations class that I'd mentioned is just sort of building up, adding step by step to the exploration without any real technique. Okay, so just really focusing on the exploration. So one example of that might be the sense of presence. Okay, and the first step might be I just focus a bit on myself, becoming grounded. Okay, kind of feeling the ground, feeling my center line, and just focusing on how I am. And so now my partner is going to give me a little bit of a push, and I just want to feel how I am in this. And at some point, probably if he pushes hard enough, I get a sense that I feel much better myself, but he can still push me over. Okay, so that would be one step. The next step is including the first step again, including myself, and then we add to that. We add including the other partner. Okay, so I include myself, and then I include the other. So now when my partner starts to push, I'm going to actually include my partner in that. Okay, so I include myself so that I can include my partner. So when he pushes, then I've added this step, and now I can also kind of connect into his feet too. So I connect into my feet, my center, his feet, his center. Okay, and again, that changes the relationship. Okay, now we could add even one more step. We could add a lot more steps, but we'll just go one more, and that's including what we call the whole system. So I first of all get in touch with myself. I add the second step, including my partner, and then now I'm going to look at what's happening together, the whole situation. Okay, and so that might look a little bit like this. So I get in touch with myself. I include my partner. And then I include the situation, which demands maybe some movement. Okay, I can't stand there and wait there the whole day. So then we start to look at how the relationship sort of begins to move both of us.
So the first possibility Durward was talking about is to start from a technique and build an exploration around the technique. There are also a few ways we can do it. We can look at principles, we can do it some specific points around the technique, some variations of techniques. But actually what we're looking now is, I take the Shamanuchi Iriminage, and basically in the technique I go behind, I open up, and then I get the Iriminage projection right with the step. So we can start the class with just the basic technique and making sure that everyone is on the same level doing this technique in a correct way. And then we can go into exploring some other elements of this technique, around this technique. So one thing is I can look at principles. So I can look, for example, at the base, at the center, base, and stability. So when I do this, I want to make sure that as I enter here, I'm really stable, being behind the uke, right? And when I do the movement, I do it really in a solid and stable way, without losing my balance, without being shaky. So this is one way of exploring the principles when doing the technique. Another one could be, another principle that we might look at is connection, for example. And when I want to explore the connection, I might go here into this position, and then first thing is, maybe we'll do it from the other side this time, even at a slight angle. So as I enter behind, here, I'm actually holding on to the collar or to the shoulder. I want to be able to connect through the center line so that I can go into the feet of the partner. Okay, so when I do this, going back here, when I do this, I get behind, I settle in, and I connect into the feet of the uke, so that I can control uke's balance, and uke cannot really walk away from this position. Okay, another step might be looking at a more fine level of connection. So actually, as I enter behind, if the uke is sensitive here, if he wants to know what is happening behind him, I actually don't even really need to pull him down, but he will be looking for what is happening behind. So as I stay here, he's moving forward now. I tried something different. So as I enter here and get behind, I can actually try to get him closer to me and falling into the space that I create just by working on his willingness to feel what is happening behind his back, right? So if he wants to stay connected with me, stay engaged in the situation, he needs to feel what is happening. So as I'm moving slowly away, he's kind of following. It might be conscious, not conscious, whatever, but there is this little movement. But when I get behind and I'm just here, you see, it's like pulling him in. So this is another step when we go from the basic technique into exploring the connection through the center line here into the feet, being behind, and then going into deeper exploration where we really work just on the connection by sensing one another, what is happening, and where we could find potentially an opening to, maybe for Durward to reverse the technique. If he wants to be able to reverse the technique, he needs to stay with me, conscious of what is happening. So he wants to feel what is behind his back. Okay, so these are a few examples of how we can build up an exploration class, what kind of explorations we can do. We have done already some videos about different explorations. You can refer to them on our channel, and we will be posting more in the future as well. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.